To other news and confirmation this week, the number of wards that will be contested in next year's local government elections has been increased by 20. That means the Electoral Commission will have to administer elections in 4,488 wards. The Municipal Demarcation Board has handed over its final report, including the boundary lines, to the IEC. Masego Sheburi is the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer at the Commission. Mr. Sheburi, good afternoon to you, sir. We know the number of people who qualify to vote in South Africa has been increasing. Our population has been increasing. I presume that you were able to make long-term plans. You knew the number of wards would increase?
Indeed, it is a statutory requirement ahead of each election for the Municipal Demarcation Board to review the network of wards that will be used as a basis of an election. Principally, the board does that to ensure equitable spread of voters, to facilitate responsive local governance. The requirement is that a ward must contain a certain number of persons to enable that ward councillor to serve those persons. And there are parameters that are set for deviation either up or down. Day before yesterday, the MDB handed over to us 95% of the wards. We have begun the task of reviewing those wards to see if they impact our network of voting districts. Voting districts are not political boundaries, but they're important as a building block for the voters' roll. And because if wards change, they have a displacement effect. A person could have been registered in Ward 1. With the new ward demarcations, they may now be in Ward 5. We must understand that implication so that we can re-register those voters in the correct VD linked to their correct ward. If we can't re-register them, at least send out messages to those persons to ask them to go online to re-register or to visit our voting stations when we open those for registration ahead of the upcoming elections. And as you say, Stephen, we now have the political boundaries. We now have the geography for the contestations of elections in 2026 or early 2027. The planning can now commence on a level of certainty and in earnest.
So if your wards do change, if you live in an area, and as you say, you voted in Ward 1, now you need to vote in Ward 5, can you change that online? I thought you maybe had to present yourself in person.
No. Because for our purposes, you just need to update your registration. And once we've done our review of voting district, we will be able to electronically allocate those voters driven by their address to link them to the new ward configuration as they now exist. People don't have to wait for the registration weekend. They can start now. And once we know the ward boundaries, we will move those persons electronically and inform them that their voting boundaries have changed and now they are in Ward 3 instead of Ward 1 where they traditionally voted. If persons can't do that online, certainly they can come to our voting stations on the 2 registration weekend that the Commission will announce ahead of the elections.
Mr. Sheburi, you said 95% of the wards were now confirmed, and you and I both know that what happens before a local election is there is often a big fight over these things for various reasons. What happens and I think there's still several court challenges that we're waiting for. What happens in those cases? I mean, those ones will be the ones that become very difficult for you, I'm sure.
Indeed, but we are informed by the Demarcation Board, the body responsible for demarcating the wards, that even where there are court challenges, in the majority of those, the MDB has been able to find accommodation with the people who are aggrieved by those ward boundaries, and they are just awaiting for the court to formalize those agreements into a court order. We hope that we do not have additional delays so that we can start the process of targeting voters for re-registration in the event that their boundaries have been affected by the new wards.
I presume there's quite a big difference between the biggest ward, the ward with the highest number of voters in South Africa, and the smallest ward. And I'm guessing here, but I think 10, 15 years ago, one of the biggest wards would probably have been in Sheburi Park in the centre of Johannesburg, lots of flats, very high population density. I have no idea if it's still the biggest ward, and I have no idea which is the smallest ward.
The ward typically follow the settlement patterns of citizens. You are correct, Stephen. It just shows how long you've been involved with the election. Sheburi Park will remain our biggest voting district because it occupies, I think, one block in Hillbrow. You can't divide it further to redelimit it. It will remain our biggest voting district. In urban centers, there is a norm that is distinct from your rural type wards because of densities. So in an urban area, you'll have a norm of about 15 to 18,000 persons in a ward, whereas in a rural type municipality, you'll have lesser numbers. Even in Gauteng, the city of Johannesburg will have the highest norm of voters per ward. And if you go to a municipality like Midvaal, you find that the numbers are significantly lower. That is what the law requires, that you have equity in a municipal setting.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. Good to talk to you again. The Deputy Chief Electoral Officer at the Electoral Commission, Masego Sheburi.